Hey y'all, so maybe you saw the recent news. There's a story right now, it's kind of big in the sportsbook professional gambling world. Um, what happened was Caesars Sportsbook is not paying $800,000 in winnings to a sportsbook bettor from Chicago. This is an interesting story. I love Chicago, I'm there all the time. But I wanted to give my thoughts on this story and the 24-year-old gambler from Chicago, and just sort of help figure out what's going on and how such a disaster can be avoided. So this guy did a huge series of bets, like around October of last year. And he started out at the Horseshoe Hammond. I've been there. You could probably see some of my, you can still see some of my videos from me playing blackjack at the Horseshoe Hammond. It's a really great casino. So he started there, and then he just sort of played at other different casinos and mixed it up. Sort of spread it out, a little on the phone as well, like with FanDuel, that sort of thing. And at one point he said he was sort of spending like up to 4 hours at a kiosk, one of those kiosks that where you can place bets at the casino for sports betting. I'm sure you've seen my videos. I've done a whole bunch of those as well, and I film it how I use the kiosk, that sort of thing. What he was trying to do was circumvent some of the casino's maximum policies. One thing you may notice if you're ever playing at those sorts of kiosks is that like the most you can bet is like $250 a bet, or like $300, or it changes if you're doing a parlay as well. Sometimes they'll let you bet more, but only if you put your player's card in. But of course, you're not anonymous at that point. And that's what this guy was trying to do. He was trying to do huge bets, but not do like a single like $100,000 bet, at the cage or anything like that. He wanted to do a whole bunch of little ones that would equal that same amount.
Bat after bat after bat after bat after bat.
So he placed all those bets, and then comes to find out he lost most of them. Now, that happens in sports betting.
In my hands right now, these are all losers.
I lose a whole lot of the games that I play. I'm very open about it. I show my wins and losses. But he did win a bunch of them as well. Not as many as he lost, but he did win some. And the ones that he won were so-called parlay, where there were like multiple things had to happen in order for one single ticket to win. Most of the ones I do are so-called money line bets, where it's just, I want one team or the other to win, that sort of thing. But because of those really well-structured parlays, he ended up with a total win of $800,000. But when he goes to Caesars, one of the various casinos that it owns, such as Horseshoe Hammond, they said that what he had been doing, that they found out about it in some way, and that he was going against the rules, and so therefore his wins are voided, and they're not going to pay him. So the question now becomes, the conversation among gamblers is, who's right? Should Caesars pay him, or was he just breaking all the rules and Caesars is in the right and shouldn't have to pay him? So that's where we are. So I guess the best place to start, in this analysis is to ask yourself why the casinos like Caesars have these limits in the first place. Well, one thing is like tax purposes. For instance, if you do a whole bunch of little like slot machines and you win a little on each one of them, those don't get a so-called W-2G form, and they're not reported as taxable gambling winnings, that sort of thing. And I think it's like $600 at a sports book in winnings, in order to generate having to report this as taxable income. So if you do a whole bunch of little ones, that wouldn't be seen as taxable because they were so small. Another issue with doing these little bets instead of a big one is it could signal that you're doing arbitrage betting and you're trying to not be seen as an arbitrage bettor. And I don't know, I did a YouTube, it was a short, you can check it out on my channel, about arbitrage betting, which is something I do sometimes at sports books. So basically, I'm pitting two casinos against each other with a guaranteed win. It's rare that that kind of works, but sometimes the odds were written in such a way that you could actually eke out a small win, no matter which team wins. But what you're doing is you're betting the two sports books against each other. So like on one of them I bet $100 that such and such would win at one sports book, and then I went to another sports book. Yeah, it was one was Bet MGM, and then I went to the William Hill at the Rio, and I bet another $100, but this one was that the team would lose. Okay, and the way the odds were written, I was going to win either way. Of course, so I did win. Well, I mean, one of them did lose and one of them did win. It didn't really matter which. But what I won, because it was the one with the slightly different odds, when I won this game, it was mostly for illustrative YouTube purposes. I actually only won 32 cents. It could have been a little different and I could have made a lot more money, but the way I won, I ended up only winning 32 cents. Now, this was mostly for illustrative purposes. What if I wanted to win not 32 cents, but $320? Well, then I would have had to do $100,000 on BetMGM and another $100,000 at William Hill, right? And in that case, I would have won a guaranteed $320. Well, in order to do that, you would have had to go to these places with these huge amounts of cash, and it would have slowly become obvious to them what you were doing is that you were arbitrage betting and playing their casino against another, right? And the casinos don't really like that, so that's a big tell as to what you're doing. Also, casinos always suspect some kind of malfeasance, maybe breaking the law. In this case, the guy was not breaking the law. And so when you have a lot of money like that, sometimes they think you're doing so-called structuring or ALM, and they get really hesitant to want to take your money because they don't know where it's been, that sort of thing. In this case, this guy was innocent with that. He just wanted to be able to place these large wagers without the casinos getting mad at him or rejecting his bets, which they could have done. But since he did so many little ones and he spread them out amongst different casinos, at first they couldn't see what he was doing. But then what happened was he went to cash out, and it sort of, I'm not sure how, but it became obvious to the casinos, or at least to Caesars. I'm sure they have cameras. They could see he was standing there at at the kiosk, and he even said that he went around and changed his appearance and changed his hat and wore his hair different and put on sunglasses. He was playing a game, but Caesars could tell what he was doing.
I'll switch up to the disguise, sunglasses. I'll hide my hair and my hat. I'll put it up in a bun.
So they told him that this whole game he was playing went against their rules and that they weren't going to pay it out. And so that's a little bit of the reason as to why they have those sorts of rules in place. Now, so from what I've just mentioned, I can kind of see, I mean, I get it. I can see where Caesars is coming from. Eventually, they just don't want to be stuck in some kind of liability, and so they have those rules that way written. And also, of course, they don't want to pay out that huge amount of money. You know, they have limits for a reason sometimes, and it's because they're maybe not willing to take that sort of risk as well. So, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but I also, from, looking more into the story, I saw that Caesars actually did offer to pay him back the money that he had wagered, including the money where he had lost his bets. So in that sense, this gambler is actually not going to come out as a loser in this case, except for just time spent and going to all these different places. He will be made whole in that sense, and I think that's a good thing. But of course, what he's upset about is that he's not going to get the winnings, the big jackpot, the $800,000 life-changing amount that he really wants.
There's no rules against staying under the radar. It's horrible what they're doing to me.
I'm not saying I'm necessarily on Caesar's side of this and not the poor gamblers, but I will say he could have probably done a better job at as to how he played all of this. That's where I think he's kind of was sort of a weakness. Now, I say that I don't know if you've seen some of my other videos. I mention my videos a lot in here, but one thing that I do a lot of is gift card purchasing. And I run into the same issues at the grocery stores where I'm buying gift cards. A lot of the times they have limits. They won't let you buy so many gift cards in 24 hours. They suspect that you're doing something wrong. And of course, there's nothing wrong that I'm doing. I'm just trying to get miles and points on my credit card. But, they suspect a lot, fraud and things like that. And so they're very weary of people who try to buy too many gift cards. But I'm pretty good at it. So I might wear a different hat, and I won't just go to the same grocery store. I'll go to multiple ones. And sometimes I'll even wear my HEB shirt to just sort of look like, if they're watching from any cameras, I just look like an employee, just maybe buying something. And then I look less likely that I am up to no good. And of course, like I said, I'm not up to no good. I'm just trying to get miles and points. But, they don't want to see me, buying, tons and tons of gift cards like these GameStop ones that I bought. I bought hundreds and hundreds of them, maybe thousands. And, it really helped me when I'm doing reselling, that sort of thing. But they don't like it, obviously. And so you have to be very patient. The fact that this guy is standing at a single kiosk for 4 hours, running it over and over again, would you think that the casino can't see that? They're not going to notice, That's kind of a little bit of arrogance, in my opinion. You have to play small and really, really mix it up. And if you see the way I play, I always play small. I'm a low roller. Casinos, they probably get upset at me too. I've been thrown out of the Luxor before because I was filming. I don't know what they think I'm doing. Maybe they think I'm trying to figure out how the machine works. None of that. I'm just doing it for my YouTube channel. It's perfectly innocent, but it goes against their policies. And I'm lucky that they just throw me out. They could also say, hey, your winnings, we're also going to void them. They could do that. Of course, that would be caught on camera too, and it would look really bad for them. But, it is within their rights to do such and such thing, and it's within my rights to never give my money to them again. And instead of going to Luxor, which I don't play at anymore, I go to the Wynn, or I go to Resorts World, where they're very, they embrace YouTubers and streamers and that sort of thing. And so, that's where my money's going to go. So we have the option to play at different places. And this guy didn't have to just limit himself to Caesars and FanDuel. There are a million different casinos. He could have, I was just saying, he could have done it a little better, the play, spread it out a little bit more, worn an outfit to look like he worked there. He could have done a lot of things, that's all I'm saying. So at the end of the day, this may actually become a legal case. He's trying to sue them, but, will he win? I don't really know. But if I think there's one thing to learn from this is to be a little more clever as to how you spread out these sorts of things and maybe do a smaller amount of money. Definitely, you don't want them to deny you huge amounts like that. That could be life-changing, that sort of thing. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on sort of spreading out your bets while doing sports betting and that sort of thing? I think it's a little crazy, but it did happen, and now it's a big story. If anything, the casinos are probably going to be even tighter on how they have these sorts of rules, and they'll be watching players, gamblers, more closely now. And so, now I'm going to have to be more careful now when I place bets, especially because I have my camera as well and all that, just to not get on the casino's bad side. So one thing I learned is just try to stay on their good side as much as you can. I know that all of this can be very lucrative and profitable, but just be smart about how you do it and try to stay on their good side. All right, that's all I got to say on this one. And in about a week, I will be right back in Vegas again, and I'll be placing sports bets. Of course I will. So I hope to catch up with you there. Thanks for watching. See you next time.